Rita Repulsa will reign again!
I'm guessing by now, regardless of how old you are, everyone's heard of the Power Rangers. Back in my day, as old as that makes me sound, the Power Rangers were hot. An extremely hot topic and everyone's favorite. Kids sang the Power Rangers theme song all the time. Even as I'm shooting and recording this right now, my brain is going, "Go, go, Power Rangers!" with every moment. That is how much the TV show meant to people. A group of teens recruited to fight against crime, but make it fun for kids. Who wouldn't love them? My personal favorite in the entire franchise will have to be the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series from 1993 to 1996. Of course, we can't really have a superhero show without beloved supervillains. Power Rangers fans would recognize some of these names, like Rita Repulsa, King Mondo, and even her predecessor and later husband, Lord Zedd. The way we rooted for them to not succeed brings all of us a large amount of nostalgia. So today, we'll be talking about some of the major Power Rangers villains from this series, along with other classics from the 1990s. Overview. Before people get lost in the plot and have to look it up to understand what I'm talking about, let me give you a little recap. The Power Rangers franchise centers on a group of snarky teenagers who receive devices called morphers that allow them to harness the power of the Morphin Grid to fight off extraterrestrial enemies and overlords. They're recruited into the Power Rangers and given these powers by Alpha 5, a robot assistant to the benevolent sage, Zordon, in response to the release of a space sorceress, Rita Repulsa. She makes an appearance multiple times on Earth, both as herself and through others that show up throughout the show. Though she does get defeated, the Rangers' troubles don't end there, as they face off against multiple other foes while trying to live normal lives outside the powers of the Morphin Grid. Once they've grown out of it and moved on with their normal lives, they pass their morphers to the next generation, and the legacy and protection go on. Lord Zedd. The first one on our list is Lord Zedd. This overlord was once the Emperor of Evil, and took over Rita's domain and plans after multiple failures on the witch's part. He's a lot stronger than Rita, which, to his credit, worked pretty well against the Power Rangers, causing them to need stronger morphers and Zords called Thunderzords to fight him. He's extremely well versed in hand-to-hand combat and the arts of sorcery. He's well known for conjuring and creating animals and using growth bombs to increase their size to match that of the Thunderzords. Alongside that, he's got the usual arsenal of villainous magical abilities like teleportation, resurrection, and mind control. Zedd once tried stealing the Zeo Crystal, a crystal capable of generating and purifying massive amounts of energy. The crystal mutilated his face and left his flesh exposed. He went around the galaxy to conquer more worlds and left Earth with Rita in charge. He was pretty much done with her inability to conquer Earth, so he said, "Screw it, I'm taking over." Threw Rita in the dumpster, literally, and started his own conquest, one that the Power Rangers settled pretty quickly. Pissed at him, Rita crawled out and escaped, used a love potion on Zedd, then married him. Now they had two sorcerers running around creating havoc. At this point, he's more of a comedic icon, but he's still just as devious. His schemes continue when Master Vile and Rita Revolto come into the picture, but then the two of them get exiled by the Machine Empire, which is a story for another time. Later on, he joins the UAE, the United Alliance of Evil, to start a universal coup, but gets hit by the Zeo Crystal again. Only this time, the effects are the opposite. He's healed and becomes human again, and the two of them are seen dancing away into the end. It's a fair enough ending, don't you think?
Rita Repulsa will reign again!
Rita Repulsa. Rita Repulsa is the main antagonist and the sole reason for the creation of the Power Rangers. She's reliant on her magic wand for a majority of her powers, like immobilization and monster creation, plus enlarging them and firing energy blasts. However, she does have skills of her own, like astral observation and dimensional manipulation, where she traps people into pocket dimensions, like Doctor Strange. Also, like her husband, she can brainwash people with a crystal ball and a chant. That's how she made the Green Ranger. He'll have his moment in a bit. 10,000 years ago, she got trapped in a space dumpster on the moon by the sage Zordon, after losing rather miserably. She managed to get out when 2 astronauts accidentally opened said dumpster, which is kinda silly on the sage's part, and then set her sights on Earth. When the Power Rangers were formed, she brainwashed a martial arts expert and made a Green Ranger to fight them, which is considered one of her biggest achievements. After getting tossed into another dumpster by Zedd following his arrival, she escaped and drugged him with a love potion to marry him and get back into her evil schemes. Things got even more chaotic when Master Vile and Rita Repulsa, her father and brother, got involved. But then, they were banished. Fast forward a little to after Zedd gets purified, and Rita also surprisingly was as well. She dances away into the light with her husband, possibly happy they don't have their abilities. King Mondo. So, remember the Machine Empire? The one that banished Rita and Zedd in the middle of their Earth takeover? Yeah, you can thank this guy. King Mondo is the ruler of the Machine Empire, and the one who decided to take a crack at invading Earth after them. While considered ruthless and arrogant, he deeply loves and cherishes his wife and son. His arsenal, while a little different, speaks much for the empire he's from. These include electrokinesis, force fields, and a classic, teleportation. He relies slightly on the Sword of Damocles, which allows him to enhance his already staggering strength and durability, but also to shoot energy beams that can flatten a city. Mondo arrives on Earth after Rita escapes and Master Vile and Rita Repulsa leave. They kick Rita and Zedd out, reclaim their moon palace as the Machine Palace, which is stupid, and start their conquest from there. At this point, the Power Rangers are now the Zeo Rangers, their power armed and sourced by the very Zeo crystal that Zedd coveted back in the day. They keep beating Mondo, which starts to annoy and even anger him. He comes across the Sword of Damocles during one of these battles, a weapon he buried a long while back. Mondo fights the Rangers yet again, but his overly powerful and ancient sword doesn't last against the Super Zeo Megazord. Tired and exhausted from yet another battle, Mondo goes home and accepts a gift handed to him by the notorious couple, only for it to be a bomb that blows him to bits, leaving nothing but his head functional and intact. He gets put back together in time for the UAE Universal Invasion, again not the country but the United Alliance of Evil, in Power Rangers in space. But Zordon turns him into sand, making him bite the dust, literally. The Green Ranger. Now we bring in the Green Ranger. He was the opposite of the usual. He was brainwashed by Rita and given the green power coin, which was pretty much taken advantage of to get rid of the Power Rangers. A puppet Power Ranger, if you will. Along with the usual superhuman strength and physical abilities you get when you morph, the Green Ranger was also given multiple weapons, like the Sword of Darkness. He also had his own Dragon Zord, as a Power Ranger does, and a Dragon Dagger. This one's actually one of my favorite weapons of his, not only for the way it looks and how he uses it, but also because it doubles as a flute to summon his Dragon Zord when needed. The Green Ranger was Tommy Oliver, a high school student new to the town and to Angel Grove High. He competed against the Red Ranger, Jason Lee Scott, in a martial arts tournament and won, catching the eye of both Kimberly and Rita. Seeing his prowess, Rita seized the chance to brainwash him and gave him the green power coin. Under her influence, he attacked the Power Rangers and Zordon, infiltrated the command center, planted a virus in Alpha 5, and cut off the connection with Zordon's home planet. Though it was brief, this pretty much showed that he could easily overpower the entire squad, so they decided to break the curse instead. Once it was broken via shattering the Sword of Darkness, he joined them as their 6th member. However, soon after joining, Tommy's powers began to fade. This was because Rita had lit a green candle that was siphoning his powers and transferring them to her. Before she could take it all, Tommy handed Jason the power coin and Dragon Dagger, allowing him to use them and bring it all back. Once that was over, Tommy rejoined again, but lost his powers once more to the Turban Shell monster brought out by Zedd. Regardless, Zordon and Alpha 5 recognized his abilities and how he would continue to be an asset to the team, so they welcomed him back as the White Ranger. The Dark Spectre. Now, I think I've mentioned the UAA before, a couple of times at least, and every evil organization needs a leader, right? That would be this guy. Dark Spectre is an antagonist from Power Rangers in space, and the feared leader of the UAE. He's a lava monster with a head that looks like a blooming flower no one would pick. Also, when I say feared, I mean feared. There was no way anyone was as terrifying as Dark Spectre to any of the villains there, and for good reason. He can project fire from his mouth, shapeshift, and even function as a conduit for magic. The experiment that Rita tried with Tommy? Yeah, he doesn't need voodoo for that. How do I know? We're talking about the same guy who sucked all of Zordon's powers and transferred them to the Psycho Rangers. We'll get to them later. But you get what I mean. Personally, the fact that he can shapeshift and play his cards right as a master tactician, that is a scary combo. A very, very scary combo. So years ago, this guy sent a bounty hunter out to kidnap a girl from KO-35. The baby grew up under his care and was called Astronema, who went on to earn the title of Princess of Evil. When the Power Rangers left Earth, Dark Spectre took that opportunity to kidnap Zordon and drain his powers. After sucking him dry, he called a meeting with the universe's most evil villains and pretty much bragged about everything. After that, he planned to invade the world next, starting with Earth. In an effort to take him down, Astronema created the Psycho Rangers with the same energy that Dark Spectre had siphoned from Zordon. During the final battle, Darkonda, the bounty hunter from years ago, launched a planet-destroying missile at him, essentially backstabbing him. Somehow, this guy was only fatally injured, which is pretty ridiculous, considering it was something that could destroy a planet, but he retaliated by swallowing Darkonda's ship whole, killing them both before they exploded. Yikes. Ivan Ooze. This creature is something of a, well, something. As his name suggests, he is the humanoid embodiment of slime and ooze and was the main antagonist of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. This guy can turn into purple slime at will and is extremely durable. He can generate, or more like create, his own minions that he calls the Ooze Men, or he can fuse with his titans at will. He can also shrink and trap people, which is how he traps Rita and Zedd in a snow globe. I swear, these two do nothing but get each other in trouble. This guy was the Prime back in the day. He created the Ecomorphicon Titans, Hornitor and Scorpitron. Once Zordon and his buddies got wind of it, they immediately sealed him in an egg-shaped capsule called the Hyperlock Chamber and buried it deep underground, exactly under Angel Grove. 6,000 years later, when the capsule re-emerged during a construction crew's work, Rita and Zedd decided to free him in hopes of gaining an ally, but Ivan trapped them in a snow globe again. His first act of revenge? The command center. He oozes in through a sealed door, because he's slime, wrecks Zordon's time warp tube, and fatally injures Alpha 5, pretty much cutting off any other resources for the Power Rangers and leaving them helpless. In this gap, Ivan passes out his slime as a toy to children, who then hand them to their parents. When the parents take them, they end up getting brainwashed into Ivan's army of soldiers. Once the Power Rangers have everything back under control and fight off Ivan's titans, they fly all the way into space and throw him into the path of Ryan's comet, pretty much obliterating him. General Goldar. Every evil villain needs a good henchman, and that henchman for Rita and later Zedd was General Goldar. He's pretty much a Magikarp clothed in gold, but just as cunning. Sad thing though is that they dumped his character down from a towering intimidator into a bumbling mess. He had eyes that could fire fireballs at people, wielded a powerful sword that could project waves of fire, and could even teleport people and fly. Oh, did I mention he could summon monsters too? Yeah, they called them the Putty Patrollers or something, and they were a menace to fight. As Rita's general, he was the one coordinating strategies and attack plans to get rid of the Power Rangers, keeping aside the fact that they failed most of the time. But during this time, he was a powerful threat and my favorite villain. When Zedd came around, he turned and pledged his services to him, earning his wings back and being healed in return. But his competency decreased, as he was defeated multiple times by Tommy, who was now the White Ranger at this point. Later on, in Power Rangers in Space, he was part of the Council of the United Alliance of Evil and one of the many villains who were turned to dust by the Zeo Crystal. The Psycho Rangers. Now we get to the Psycho Rangers. The name says it all. They were psychos created by the Princess of Evil in an effort to throw her master off the throne. They were advanced versions, able to read and suck out the energy and knowledge of the Space Rangers and counter them accordingly. Each one was a psycho version of each individual ranger, which is a ton of effort in my opinion. They also had monster forms and, of course, had superhuman strength and durability. Each of them had strengths that would counter their specific counterpart perfectly, which is, again, scary as hell. Astronema created these copies to overthrow Dark Spectre, but also to hunt down the Rangers. They first appeared to take the place of the Space Rangers and cause pure chaos before revealing their actual monstrous forms. However, their intense hate for the Space Rangers pretty much sealed their fate, and there was tons of infighting within the group. That, along with their impatience, allowed the Space Rangers to fight, defeat, and turn them into data cards. These data cards were later found by another villain called Divatox, who used them as his soldiers. The Space Rangers had to team up with the Galaxy Rangers, which became an epic showdown for the viewers and fans. However, Psycho Pink, or the Psycho version of the Pink Ranger, almost killed Galaxy Pink. Galaxy Pink later sacrificed herself to save Space Pink, but that sacrifice didn't go in vain, as it allowed them to destroy the Psycho Rangers permanently. Eye Guy. Personally, this one is just as comedic as he looks. He's a humanoid creature with eyes all over himself, with one big giant eye smack in the center. I could never take him seriously whenever he came on screen. Eye Guy is one of Rita's monsters, and one she liked to deploy often. The most dangerous thing about him, though, is that his main eye is able to imprison anyone he wants into any of his other eyes, then drain them dry and use their smarts for evil. Other than that, he's just another funny-looking monster. I will say his power is scary though. Eye Guy was made by Finster, Rita's monster maker, whose main purpose was to capture intelligent children. He succeeded when he managed to capture one of Billy Cranston's friends, a child prodigy, and trapped him inside his main eye. The Rangers struggled to defeat him for a while before learning the secret of the main eye. It was his biggest weakness. He later got resurrected to fight the Power Rangers during Rita and Zedd's wedding though, so I guess there's that. Bones. Bones was also one of Finster's monsters made for Rita's personal use against the Power Rangers. He was pretty much a skeleton, but able to handle anything, even his bones shattering, as long as his head was detached and intact. He could remove his head and transport it into a separate dimension, essentially creating his own little pocket dimension and trapping people in there. He could also fire eye lasers, turn invisible at will, and, as if that wasn't cool enough, he was skilled with a sword and could summon other soldiers. Bones was made out of clay and brought to life via voodoo. He took his head off to create a time warp to trap the Power Rangers in there, then summoned his skeleton warriors. During the fight, the Rangers discovered his weakness, his detached head. Billy, the Blue Ranger, grabbed his head and tossed it to Trini, the Yellow Ranger, who then threw it into the lava. The skeleton self-destructed, freeing them from their prison. He later made a reappearance in the UAE, but got obliterated by the Zeo Crystal. Putties. There isn't really much to say about these creatures. They were made out of the same clay that Bones was made from, and were basically Rita's grunt soldiers. They were created the same way you make pottery, put into a mold and baked in a kiln. But the scary thing about these bad boys is that you wouldn't be able to tell whether they were real or not, simply because they were able to shapeshift into actual people and could adapt into society way too well. Is it cake? Nah, it's a putty. Divatox. Divatox is, like her name, a diva. She's a space pirate from Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, who focuses mainly on wealth and fame, and hates the Turbo Rangers for sabotaging her wedding with Malagor, even though it was a marriage for her benefit and not out of love. She arrives on Earth and pretty much makes the Rangers' lives hell. There's even a point where she and her forces manage to break into the command center and trash everything. But before she can finish the job, she gets summoned to the UAE Council. She's able to imitate voices, probably because she has a long tongue like a lizard, and she has a wrist blade. She's also able to shoot fire beams out of her eyes, but, you know, typical space pirate stuff. Scorpina. Scorpina, for once, is actually Rita's friend and ally. She worked alongside Goldar for a long while, but was sealed away in a large boulder. She was once sent to Earth to trick the Black Ranger, posing as a girlfriend named Sabrina, but her plans got thwarted. I heard through the grapevine that she got sent to the Talos dimension by the dynamic couple we all know and love, which means she's the only one who got saved from the Zeo Crystal's energy. She did try and come back to get her revenge, but failed and was sent back to the Talos dimension. Marvelous verdict. Every villain had their perks and not so perks. But you know what they all had in common? They were all involved with either Rita, Zedd, or both. I don't know about you, but this couple was literally the only thing tying all these villains to Earth. If they never came to Earth, then Earth wouldn't have needed the Power Rangers. What do you think? Comment down below if I'm not wrong.